What's up everybody, NIKMOE back again, and this is Sonic Mania. If you pay close attention to game headlines, you've probably heard the buzz. Sonic Mania has launched to much praise and positive reception from fans. A quick look at Metacritic reveals that Sonic Mania is actually the highest rated Sonic game in 15 years, which is a huge deal for die-hard Sonic fans. Years of misguided attempts to reboot the franchise have led us here, to Sonic Mania, a game which returns the blue blur to his 16-bit side-scrolling roots. I've played through Sonic Mania and I came away very impressed. If you don't already know, Sonic Team had very little to do with the creation of Sonic Mania. Instead, they gave creators like Christian Whitehead and Hedgehog, both known for their creation of Sonic fan games, a green light to build an official Sonic game, the type of game that fans have been asking for since the 16-bit era ended. The result is a game that looks like it could have been made 25 years ago, but was given the benefit of modern game design and an incredible coat of polish. Everything is painstakingly animated, from the characters to the enemies to the backgrounds and the artwork, and the soundtrack feels faithful to the Sega Genesis without the limitations of the original hardware. But Sonic Mania isn't just a nostalgic cash-in either. It features new mechanics and additions to the original formula that enhance the experience, while doing away with some of the more frustrating aspects of Sonic's original games. Overall, it does a great job of feeling like old Sonic while removing most of the problems the old Sonic games had. And this got me thinking. Just how good is Sonic Mania, and is there a chance that it's actually better than the original collection of Sonic games from the Sega Genesis? Curious to find out, I went back and played through all 4 of the original Sonic games. That's Sonic 1, 2, 3, and Sonic and Knuckles, and went back to Sonic Mania to see how it stacks up with the classics. For the sake of this comparison, I will be leaving off Sonic CD, as well as the later reboots such as Sonic the Hedgehog 4. Also, I will be playing the original versions of these games, with no enhancements like emulator save states. This leaves us with a total of 5 classic Sonic games to compare, starting with 1 and ending with Mania. Also, I will be reviewing these games in a modern context, which means I'll be ranking them on how well they play today, in 2017, and not how well they played 20 years ago. I know it seems unfair, but it's the only way I could give each game a fair critique without my nostalgia playing favorites. Also, there's a pretty good chance that my list looks very different from yours, so be sure to let me know what your top Sonic game is in the comments below. Okay, without further ado, let's count them down and see where Sonic Mania ranks against the classic Sonic games. In at number 5, and at the bottom of the list, we have the original Sonic the Hedgehog, the game that started it all and made the Sega Genesis a runaway success. I know it's coming in last on this list, but that doesn't mean Sonic 1 isn't an important game. Sonic 1 made Sega a household name, and the quality of Sonic 1 is what paved the way for all of the sequels, including Mania. Unfortunately, it's the sequels that make Sonic 1 harder to go back to. I hate to bring it up, but I have no choice. In Sonic 1, there is no spin dash, which has basically become Sonic's signature move. In gameplay terms, this means getting back up to speed takes more time. In Sonic 1, if you get hit, there's no way to pick up speed easily. You have to rebuild your speed gradually, which feels unnatural for a character that's supposed to be all about going fast. Sonic 1 is also a very early Genesis cartridge that features no saving of any kind, which is a feature that made the later Sonic games more approachable. If you can get past its age and its limited mechanics, Sonic 1 does feature some of the most memorable sights and sounds in the series. Obviously, Green Hill Zone is instantly recognizable for most gamers, as is its signature soundtrack. I know it's tough to judge an old game by its lack of features, but reviewing games in a modern context will do that. Therefore, Sonic 1 needs to come in at number 5. Next up, and at number 4, we have Sonic and Knuckles. The 4th game of the Genesis era was originally intended to be part of Sonic 3, but was moved to a separate cartridge due to cost and time restraints. In fact, Sonic and Knuckles was released less than a year after Sonic 3, which led to the creation of Lock-On Technology, a Genesis feature exclusive to Sonic and Knuckles, which let players connect their Sonic and Knuckles cartridge to other Sonic games. And when you connect Sonic and Knuckles to Sonic 3, both games are greatly enhanced. But more on that later. Sonic & Knuckles as a standalone game may not be as fondly remembered as other Sonic titles, but it stands out from the crowd thanks to its two playable characters. Sonic and Knuckles approach each level with unique abilities. Knuckles is able to glide and climb to new areas, while Sonic has his signature speed and mobility. Unfortunately, without Sonic 3 connected to the Sonic & Knuckles cartridge, there is no save system, meaning you'll need to complete both campaigns in a single sitting if you want to see the full game. All in all, I don't have a lot of negative things to say about Sonic & Knuckles as a standalone game. Its levels, music, and enemies are just slightly less appealing than those found in the rest of the games on this list. Up next and in third place we have Sonic 2, which may be a bit of a surprise, as many fans consider Sonic 2 to be the best game in the series, and for good reason. Sonic 2 was the blueprint for all Sonic games to come. Giving Sonic his signature spin dash meant that levels could feature more loops, more steep slopes, and more obstacles that required speed. And the addition of Tails meant that levels could feature more vertical design. Sonic 2 was the first game in the series to feature any sort of multiplayer, which isn't the best way to play the game, but it's something Sonic 1 and Sonic & Knuckles don't offer. Most importantly, Sonic 2 is where Sonic got his signature cool guy attitude. Levels like Chemical Plant Zone and Casino Night Zone immediately come to mind as levels you'd never see in a Mario game or any other platformer at the time. Sonic 2 had style, and that captured a lot of young players' attention in the 90s. Unfortunately, Sonic 2 is held back from the top of this list by some outdated design choices. Much like Sonic 1, Sonic 2 features no save system, which of course makes later portions of the game less accessible to newer players. The game also features some questionable design choices that were addressed in later games. For example, here's a checkpoint in front of a boss fight. If you jump into a bonus game and lose, you will respawn here with no rings, which puts you in a disadvantage for the boss fight. This punishes the player for earning a bonus game, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Now you can always run backwards and scoop up a few rings, but this isn't made clear to new players. Additionally, even though this boss is easy, the decision to make it a one-hit kill fight seems strange given how early in the game this level is. Complaints aside, I do believe Sonic 2 is one of the most important games on this list. It just has a few signs of old age, which earns it number 3 on my list. We are now down to our final 2 slots. You may have noticed that my chart isn't exactly a straight line, and that some games are closer together than others. This is no accident. I believe some of these games are nearly equal, and as you can see, the final 2 slots are very close together because I believe both of these games are excellent and are only separated by personal preference. With that small warning out of the way, coming in at second place we have Sonic 3. To me, Sonic 3 is a nearly perfect Sega Genesis game. It has more features than Sonic 1 and Sonic 2, and in my opinion features a better flow of levels than Sonic and Knuckles. Plus, Sonic 3 has the all-important save system, allowing players to continue where they left off. That's right, you no longer have to beat an entire Sonic game in one sitting. It also improves upon all the multiplayer features we first saw in Sonic 2. All in all, the technical improvements made in Sonic 3 have kept the game from aging like its predecessors. Of all the classic Sonic games, it's Sonic 3 that's the easiest to go back to. However, what truly sets this game apart is the level design. Sonic 3 constantly reminds you of who you're fighting and what you're up against, and it keeps you engaged. Every act now features a boss fight, and sometimes we get to see the different bosses ahead of time, giving us clues as to how they fight, as well as an additional challenge because the bosses can alter the stages, changing them as you play. These transforming stages give a sense of urgency. Sonic needs to keep moving because these levels feel dangerous. It gives Sonic's speed a real sense of purpose, because moving through a level quickly is often necessary to stay alive. This is what makes Sonic 3 such a great game. There's a constant sense of purpose to everything you do, whether it's the in-game cutscenes pushing the story along, or the threat of danger as levels catch fire or fall apart beneath you. Sonic 3 is a very complete package, and in my opinion, Sonic 3 holds up much better in a modern context than any of the previous titles on this list. But all lists must come to an end, and there can only be one winner, which leads us to Sonic Mania. I know. Putting the newest game at the top of the list is gonna be controversial, but hear me out. Sonic Mania is basically Sonic 3.2. It features everything that made Sonic 3 fantastic without the limitations of the Sega Genesis. Sonic Mania runs at 60 frames per second in native widescreen, which turns out is really important in a game all about going fast. The increased clarity and improved view distances make Sonic much more playable. It's just easier to see where you're going and helps you avoid danger. The original Sonic games also had their fair share of slowdown, like when you get hit and there are lots of rings on screen. This is no longer the case in Sonic Mania thanks to Christian Whitehead's new engine running on modern hardware like the Switch, PS4, and PC. But what about the actual game? Well, Sonic Mania features a mix of old and new locations, but every level is technically new. Even classic levels like Green Hill Zone feature new layouts and secrets to discover, as well as all new boss fights. Speaking of bosses, Sonic Mania continues the concept of featuring a unique boss after every single level. And I have to say, the boss fights in Sonic Mania are without a doubt my favorite Sonic bosses of all time. Some of these bosses feel like you're playing an entirely different game, while others are epic multi-part showdowns that feel 20 years in the making. All said, the bosses in Mania nearly steal the show, and they're a big reason why I put the game ahead of Sonic 3 in the list. But Sonic Mania takes yet another cue from Sonic 3 in the way a zone changes from Act 1 to 2. For example, in Mania, the first act will introduce a player to a zone and show them some new enemies and mechanics to look out for. But in Act 2, these mechanics will be remixed in new ways, and enemies will grow more clever and attack you from new locations. It gives the game a natural progression. You're always wondering what's waiting for you ahead. Sonic Mania also features 3 playable characters in a total of 4 different configurations, which makes the game highly replayable. Just like Sonic 3, we can save our progress, but in Mania we have the added ability to return to previous levels once we complete the game, which allows players to go for all the collectibles, even after they've beaten that final boss. Look, I could go on and on, but the truth is, it was never a fair fight. I tried to play every 2D Sonic title in a modern context, but only Mania was actually made for modern hardware, and has 20 years worth of lessons learned from previous Sonic titles. Sonic Mania is a love letter to classic Sonic titles, and without the previous games in this list, Sonic Mania would not be number 1, or even exist for that matter. But you know what? Something's missing. The truth is, Sega did come incredibly close to creating something just as good, if not better than Mania 23 years ago. Yes, that's right. I'm talking about Sonic 3 and Knuckles. When you combine Sonic 3 and Sonic and Knuckles, the result is the most feature-packed 2D Sonic game on the Genesis. Like Mania, we have 3 playable characters, each with unique abilities, and each have their own set of collectibles to unlock. And because this is basically 2 games combined, we have a total of 14 playable zones, making this the largest Sonic experience playable on the Sega Genesis. Sonic 3 and Knuckles is technically 2 different games combined, but when taken as a single experience, Sonic 3 and Knuckles gives Sonic Mania a run for its money, which is really saying something for such an old game. To wrap things up, I will leave you with a recommendation. If you're interested in classic Sonic games but have never played one, I highly recommend checking out Sonic Mania on your platform of choice. If you enjoyed what you played and you're looking for more, Sonic 3 and Knuckles is your next stop, but you can't go wrong with either game. Okay, now it's up to you guys. Let me know what your favorite 2D Sonic title is in the comments below, and tell me what makes it the best. This has been NIKMOE. Thank you all for watching, and I will catch you all in the next video.